What's the very first thing you do after waking up, before you even brush your teeth, could send your blood pressure soaring within minutes? It's not something rare or exotic. In fact, millions of older adults in America do it every single morning without thinking twice. And while it feels comforting, it might be quietly forcing your heart to work harder than it should. This isn't about giving up the small joys of your morning. It's about understanding how a simple change in your routine can protect your health and keep you steady for the moments that matter most. By building small, healthy eating habits into your day, you can enjoy your mornings without risking those sudden spikes. Let me share the story of Mr. James, who thought his mornings were harmless until he learned what was really happening inside his body. Mr. James, a 72-year-old retired teacher from Ohio, had followed the same morning ritual for decades. He'd wake up around 6:30, open the blinds to let the sun in, and head straight to the kitchen. The first thing on his mind wasn't water, breakfast, or even a slow stretch. It was a steaming mug of strong black coffee. On some days, he'd grab a slice of sweetbread or a small pastry to go with it. It felt like comfort, a reward for getting up and starting the day. He believed it gave him energy, helped him focus, and even kept him young at heart. But lately, he'd noticed moments of lightheadedness after his first sip and a strange pounding in his ears. He dismissed it as just getting older, unaware that his seemingly harmless habit was sending his blood pressure up faster than his heart could handle, setting the stage for something he never saw coming. It wasn't until his daughter, Emily, visited one weekend that Mr. James began to question his morning routine. Emily, a nurse, noticed how quickly he drained his first cup of coffee before even saying good morning. She also noticed how he would pause mid-conversation, touching his temple, almost as if he were waiting for the dizzy spell to pass. "Dad," she asked gently, "do you ever check your blood pressure in the morning?" He chuckled. "Why would I? I feel fine most of the time." Emily suggested they check it right then. The reading startled him, 155/92. It wasn't dangerously high for just one reading, but Emily explained that it's not just about the number itself. It's about the sudden jump from his baseline. When you drink strong coffee on an empty stomach, especially after a night's rest, your body isn't ready for that caffeine surge. And when you add a pastry or sweetbread, your blood sugar spikes too. That combination makes your heart work harder in those first minutes you're awake. To help him picture it, she used a simple analogy. It's like starting your car on a freezing morning and flooring the gas pedal before the oil has time to circulate. The engine might run, but the wear and tear builds up. For seniors, she explained, this engine is the heart and arteries. Over time, the elastic walls of blood vessels stiffen, and it takes longer for the body to adjust to changes in pressure. A rapid spike right after waking can increase the risk of dizziness, falls, or even trigger more serious events like a stroke or heart attack, especially in someone already managing hypertension. Mr. James listened, his hands wrapped around his empty mug. He realized this wasn't just about his comfort. It was about protecting his independence. Emily reassured him that she wasn't asking him to give up the pleasures of his morning. Instead, she suggested a small shift in order. Try starting with a glass of water. 8 ounces is enough. Then have something with protein and fiber, even if it's just a boiled egg with a slice of whole grain toast. Enjoy your coffee after that. You'll still get the comfort you love, but without the strain on your heart. He nodded, feeling both surprised and oddly relieved. No one had ever connected his coffee habit to his blood pressure before. It was such a simple change, but the thought of feeling steady and avoiding that pounding in his ears made him curious to see what would happen next. The next morning, Mr. James decided to give Emily's suggestion a try. He shuffled into the kitchen as usual, but instead of heading straight to the coffee pot, he filled a tall glass with cool water. The first few sips felt strange, almost like he was breaking a rule he'd followed for decades, but the crisp taste was refreshing. He sliced a boiled egg he'd prepared the night before, added a sprinkle of pepper, and toasted a slice of whole grain bread. It wasn't as exciting as his usual pastry, but it was satisfying in a quieter way. 10 minutes later, he poured his coffee, inhaling the familiar aroma. This time, when he took that first sip, the warmth felt less like a jolt and more like a gentle nudge into the day. By the time he checked his blood pressure, 140/85, it was noticeably lower than the morning before. Not perfect, but better. Encouraged, he repeated the routine the next day and the day after. Within a week, he noticed fewer dizzy spells and less pounding in his ears. It wasn't just the numbers on the blood pressure monitor. It was how steady he felt when bending over to tie his shoes or getting up from his favorite recliner. Emily explained why the difference was so quick. When you give your body something nourishing before caffeine or sugar, you're helping regulate how quickly your blood vessels respond. Protein and fiber slow down the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream, so your heart doesn't have to suddenly pump harder. She reminded him that the goal wasn't perfection but progress, and that even small adjustments in the first 30 minutes of the day could make a big difference over the years. For many older adults, these spikes go unnoticed because they don't always cause immediate pain. That's what makes them dangerous. It's easy to blame fatigue, dizziness, or a brief headache on age, without realizing the pattern is tied to morning habits. By shifting the order of what you consume after waking, you reduce the shock to your cardiovascular system, much like easing a car into motion instead of slamming the accelerator. Mr. James began experimenting with other breakfast combinations: Greek yogurt with berries, oatmeal with chopped nuts, or even a small turkey sausage with scrambled eggs. The variety kept him from missing his old routine, and the improvement in how he felt motivated him to keep going. He still had his coffee every morning, but now it was part of a rhythm that felt sustainable. One Saturday, while having breakfast with a neighbor, he casually mentioned his new approach. She was surprised. She had been experiencing similar dizzy spells and had never considered her coffee and donut habit as a cause. They laughed about how set in their ways they both were, but she promised to give the change a try. Mr. James realized that making this shift wasn't just about his own health. It was about starting conversations, sharing solutions, and helping others avoid the same risks. It felt good to know that a simple choice could protect not only his heart, but also the quality of his mornings for years to come. As the weeks passed, Mr. James started to notice other changes he hadn't expected. His energy in the late morning no longer crashed around 10 a.m., and he found it easy to focus on his crossword puzzles without the fog that used to roll in after his second cup of coffee. Emily explained that these benefits were all connected. Steady blood pressure and balanced blood sugar meant his brain was getting a consistent supply of oxygen and nutrients. One morning, while taking a walk around the neighborhood, he realized he was moving at a slightly quicker pace without feeling winded. The crisp air filled his lungs, and he couldn't help but think about how small shifts were adding up in a big way. It's like giving my body a fair start every day, he thought. He also began to reflect on the deeper reason for making the change. It wasn't just about avoiding dizzy spells. It was about protecting his independence. At 72, he valued the ability to drive himself to the store, cook his own meals, and tend to his small vegetable garden. The thought of losing that freedom, of relying on others for basic tasks, stirred something in him. Emily reminded him that blood pressure control is one of the most powerful tools older adults have to prevent strokes and heart disease, two conditions that can quickly rob a person of mobility and independence. Every choice you make in the morning, she told him, is like casting a vote for the kind of life you want to keep living. Motivated, Mr. James started sharing his new approach more openly. At the local senior center, he mentioned it during a group coffee meetup. He framed it not as a lecture, but as a story. How he thought his mornings were harmless until he learned about the hidden effects, how easy it was to adjust, and how much better he felt. Several friends asked him for simple breakfast ideas, and they swapped recipes: scrambled eggs with spinach, avocado toast, cottage cheese with sliced peaches. In these conversations, he discovered something important. People were more willing to try a change if they didn't feel judged or told they had to give something up. By focusing on adding something, water, protein, fiber, before their usual coffee or treat, it felt like a positive choice rather than restriction. He also learned to keep it realistic. Some days, he still reached for his coffee first out of habit, but now he recognized the signs of a blood pressure spike and understood how to manage it. Progress, not perfection, became his motto. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He felt more in control, less at the mercy of just getting older. Each morning became a quiet reminder that his health wasn't something slipping away. It was something he could actively shape, one small choice at a time. And as he thought about the years ahead, he pictured more walks, more crossword puzzles, and more breakfasts enjoyed without that uneasy pounding in his ears. The path forward felt clearer, and he was ready to keep moving. One rainy afternoon, Mr. James sat by the window, watching water bead and slide down the glass. He thought about the years ahead, birthdays, holidays, simple afternoons with his grandchildren, and realized how much they all depended on the choices he made now. The idea of a sudden stroke or heart attack wasn't just frightening because of the pain. It was a thought of missing out on those moments, of becoming a spectator in his own life instead of a participant. Emily had once told him, "Taking care of your blood pressure isn't just for you. It's a gift to your family." At the time, it sounded like something a nurse would say. Now it felt personal. His health wasn't only his responsibility. It was a way of honoring the people who loved him, ensuring he'd keep showing up for them in ways that mattered. This shift in perspective made his new routine feel less like a chore and more like an act of connection. Pouring that first glass of water each morning, preparing a simple breakfast, and waiting to enjoy his coffee became small rituals of care, not just self-care, but family care. He began to notice how these choices rippled outward. His neighbors started bringing whole grain muffins instead of frosted donuts to their Saturday coffee. Friends from the senior center shared how they felt steadier and less foggy after changing their morning order. It wasn't a revolution, but it was enough to start changing the tone of their mornings. For Mr. James, these little wins built momentum. The fear of losing his independence was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. Instead, it became motivation. Each steady reading on his blood pressure monitor felt like a quiet victory, a sign that the life he wanted was still within reach, as long as he kept making the choices that supported it. On a quiet Sunday morning, the kitchen filled with the soft glow of sunrise. Mr. James sat at the table, a plate of scrambled eggs with spinach in front of him, a slice of whole grain toast on the side. His coffee cup rested nearby, untouched for now, letting its aroma fill the room while he enjoyed the first bites of breakfast. There was no rush, no jolt, no sudden pounding in his ears, just a steady calm that seemed to set the tone for the rest of the day. He could hear the faint laughter of neighborhood kids playing outside and the rhythmic drip of the coffee maker finishing its cycle. It struck him how peaceful the mornings had become. What used to be a quick grab-and-go habit now felt like a mindful start, a small promise to himself that his health came first. And the best part was that it didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like a gift he got to unwrap each day. He thought back Emily's words, the ones he had brushed off at first. "It's okay to slow down. Your body knows how to take care of itself if you listen with kindness." Now, those words rang true in the quiet of his kitchen, carrying more weight than he could have imagined. If this story helped you see your mornings in a new light, I'd be happy to share more gentle health stories with you. Every small choice you make, whether it's drinking that first glass of water, adding a little protein to your plate, or simply pausing before your first sip of coffee, can be a quiet but powerful way to protect your heart. You don't have to overhaul your life to make a difference. Progress comes from these little shifts, repeated over time, until they become part of who you are. And when you do that, you're not only caring for yourself, you're giving your family the gift of more years together, filled with the moments that matter most. If you'd like to keep finding those small but life-changing steps, I'd love to have you here again. Subscribe if you want more advice that feels like it's coming from a friend's voice. Stay kind. Stay fresh. See you again soon.